Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Sense Esports podcast presented by Visuals by Impulse. I'm your host, Eddie. And I know, guys, we've been away, and, Ben's here with me. How's it going, Ben?
I'm good. How are you?
I think I just want to make sure on my part, you look kind of paused, but I think it's just a setting issue on my behalf, but you look good on the stream. Um,
Cool.
so, yeah, today we're going to be discussing structure in esports and basically, in companies in esports, the overall structure of a company and how that really affects a lot of the in and outs of how an organization or a company can do down the line. So, when you hear structure, Ben, what do you think about, when people say structure in esports?
So to me, that's just kind of like how an org decides, like when they incorporate themselves, it's how they decide that they want to run the back end. So that's kind of the stuff that you don't see, like
Right.
necessarily when you're looking at social media or even looking at teams. It's more of how they want to kind of run
Run.
the
Right.
organization without the public really seeing.
Yeah, 100%. I think, especially in esports, the whole idea of structure sometimes, since it is sometimes a smaller or a younger audience or overall like people trying to get into the scene, I feel like structure sometimes gets overlooked and kind of rushed. But overall, I think structure in esports means overall the fundamentals of how you go about executing something and the people that are in there with you, helping you to execute that, right? Um, when it comes to organizations, what do you think? What should the whole idea of a structure mean to an org?
Um, I think the biggest thing is kind of understanding what you want to be because there's certain situations where structure is not important at all, and there's some where it's like extremely important.
Right.
So, in my opinion, it's just based off what you want your business partners to think of you. So, whether you're dealing with sponsors or other teams or potential partners, it's like a huge deal because it's just kind of how you display your level of professionalism to them.
Hmm.
So that's the big thing for me, which is why I try to stress the importance of it a lot.
Yeah, I would say definitely. From the outside in, you can really tell if an organization has a well thought out structure. I mean, you look at other companies, esports organizations that are professional organizations, they run so smoothly because of their structure alone, right? Because they have the right people in place, because they understand who needs to be where and what they need to do. Um, I think, going back to what you said, where sometimes it matters, sometimes it does. I think that's very important, right? I think in the beginning, structure doesn't need to be a focal point. However, understanding what your structure will be moving forward is very important. However, I do think that sometimes that gets overlooked for some reason, and people don't understand that, if they want to build something, they need to think about, the steps they'll have to take and the people they'll need down the line in order to make that succeed.
Yep, completely agree.
Um, Yeah. When it comes to what do you think you see a lot? Like if you had to give tips to people that need help with structures and organizations, so say my name is Bill, I'm trying to start an organization. What are some tips, you would give this individual regarding structure?
So the most important thing is to kind of set a guideline for what you're looking to do. So whether it's, I think the a big problem in now like in today's like esports age is that people they're like, well, let's just start an org, but then they have no kind of idea what they want. What they
Right.
don't even know what that means themselves. So I think it starts in like the staff that you have. If you're a one person like org owner, it's a little different, but I don't think it's that probable or logical to start something on your own at this point. Kind of like setting yourself up for failure, but it's just kind of what you want. I think declaring specific roles to people is very important. I think at least for Third Sense when we started, it was CEO, Director of Esports, CMO, and COO, and it's pretty much still that today.
Right.
With a couple more positions. However, I think it's important to have any if you're starting out with a large investment or any sort of money, even a CFO. I know for us, I kind of deal with a lot of the financial aspects within my COO, I guess title, but if you want to it's how you declare what your staff does and how they integrate together is super important. Even I've seen orgs have human resources if you have a lot of people,
Right.
and chief of staffs and stuff like that to kind of keep everything in check. And I think that's the most important thing, because if you're with a partner and everyone's trying to do the same thing at once, it's just it's not as productive. But if everyone has something to do, and they kind of collaborate on, everyone helps each other, but it's more kind of centralized as to what your duties are, I think that's super important, because
Right.
it just allows for more fluid conversations in meetings.
Yeah, I agree. I think some like if I had to give a tip, my tip would be as somebody to say, you're starting this org with or company with a group of friends, right? Understand that the initial individuals need to set that example, right? Need to set the pace of how things are going to go moving forward. So my biggest tip would be, if you're the owner of this company or organization, you have to set the example and the standards, right? You have to follow them, though. I think sometimes a lot of the issues that I've seen when I was, starting in esports was that these owners try to implement these structures. However, they didn't follow the structure themselves, right? So I think that was my concern, and that's what I tell people when they ask me about structure. It's like, if you implement the structure, you need to follow the structure as well. And you see a lot of organizations kind of fall on their face because they implement this, these things that they should do this way or a specific way. However, they're not done that way. It's almost like the structure is just there for show. So my biggest thing would be, make sure that you guys are following the structure, that especially, the owners or whatever, or, the individuals that have a major role in the company organization, set the example. So like that, there's actually, almost like a chain effect with how people react and
Foundation.
with different situations. Yeah. So that would be my tip. You know, when it regarding structure in the beginning of companies or organizations, what are your thoughts on, having structure from the beginning compared to having structure, when something is more developed?
They both have both ways of doing it has like pros and cons, but
Right.
it just doesn't make sense to have like a clusterfuck in the beginning, because it's that simple. It's just you're just setting yourself up for failure without having any plans for infrastructure, because people nothing's defined, so you don't know. Not only you don't have goals defined, you really don't have short-term goals either, because everyone's trying to do everything, and that doesn't really make any sense, because it comes to the point where you're doing stuff and you really don't know what you're even doing, because you have no clue where your other like uh I guess
Partner or
partner
whatever.
or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
like friend or whatever is doing. And for all you guys could be both submitting sponsorship requests to the same company,
Yeah.
just stupid stuff. So I think it's very important to kind of have a guideline of a to-do list, especially in the beginning. But towards the end, if you don't, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, because if you don't have, I mean, that question, like, it's valid, but it's not valid at the same time, because if you don't have infrastructure at all, there is no infrastructure to be made, because there's nothing to make, because there's nothing. Like, you can't do it without any sort of structure. So I don't know, what people are thinking when they don't start off with some sort of guideline, because there's no way for them to get to the point to even implement it if they don't have it to start with, in my opinion, at least. And that's why you see all the Twitter organizations that they just have the free sponsors where you just submit your email and you get a code.
Right.
And that doesn't go, and it's not going anywhere. So
Yeah, I guess the better question would be what I meant by like down the line, right? Obviously your structure from the beginning, changes as you grow and develop. As we've seen with Third Sense, the way when we started, it was mainly just, word of mouth, just kind of talk about it. But now, there's more things that we have meetings with, and the way we go about, executing certain things. I guess that's kind of like the better question down the line. What tips would you give for somebody to be like, hey, I think at this point you should put more into your structure or change it up a little bit?
I think it's when you start seeing like big growth, I guess.
Right.
I think that should be, like, say, you don't have a structure, right? Or you don't know what you're doing, and you have some money, and all of a sudden you come in contact with a good team and you can afford to pay for them, and they start winning or whatever, and you may not be doing anything right on the back end, but they're winning. It's kind of a rare situation, but this is kind of how it would work out. And you start seeing like massive amounts of like growth. That's
Right.
when I think that's what it would be, kind of like a slap in the face that maybe we need to get our shit together, kind of thing.
I mean, no, I agree. I think sometimes, especially with organizations, that are amateur moving on to pro, the issue that I see is that like they have capital, right, to invest in these teams. However, that's the only thing they have going for them, right? There's no actual fundamentals to the organization. It's just kind of like, we have money, here you go, and win and win, and it's good while they win. However, I think the lack of structure when they don't win shows, right? Because at that point they're put in a place where, holy shit, what do we do, right? I don't know what to do. Do we just shut down? Do we close the doors? Do we, focus on other things? And I think that's kind of where my biggest issue is with structure, where some organizations focus so heavily on just having teams and teams and teams. And that's good, right? As long as they win. When they don't win, that's when the issue shows. And, that's where your structure comes into play, where like, we bend, but we don't break type of mentality. And I think, I've seen a couple of companies, organizations that have gone through that. And it's kind of sad, right? Because, from the outside in, obviously you don't really know what's going on internally, but you can tell somebody that has some experience and knows how organization works. A lot of the times the lack of structure breaks organizations. It doesn't allow them to continue, and it puts them and it makes them look very, 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 weak from, the fact that they don't have teams anymore and they have nothing else going for them. So that would be my biggest, like thing that gets me under my skin when I see that happen.
Let's just take an example, because I'm not really afraid
Yeah.
this example, but I think a good example of what we're talking about is like, it's the org Bittersweet, who kind of got slapped with a good team for COD champs, or even before that. I don't even remember who they had. Maybe it was like Mochilla's team in Call of Duty, but that was like a perfect example of, their team was doing okay. They were placing top 16 at LANs, which at like MLG events, which isn't not good on the terms of Optic and FaZe and United, but it's not
terrible.
Good. It's not good. Yeah. But that's kind of a perfect example when they, you started to see the flaws. Even when they were winning, you started to see, these guys can't even tweet correctly, and they're making roasts on the team Twitter of other teams. I remember there's like a meme that they made like Clayster falling off the map or something. Like just unprofessional stuff from an org. That just comes from a lack of discipline, which is terrible, because you look at us and we're like, well, we would have killed to have a top 16 placing at Vegas, and we could have treated the players right and not made a fool of ourselves. And now look at Bittersweet, they're nothing. So I think that's like a good example to use, to talk, to use to tie to what we're talking about. But
right. No, I think I agree. I think especially I think what differentiates the average organizations that are professional organizations compared to like the very successful, like for example, I would say, let's use an amateur, a pretty top amateur. Say for example,
Panda.
like Panda, or Era, or one of those lower tier,
Most Wanted, one of those.
One of those lower tier professional companies. I think the issue with them is the structure. I really do think so. You look at all these personalities and characters in like Optic and FaZe, and you see how much they do to make sure that from the back end, from the structure side of things, the players have nothing to worry about, that they're there to do their job, and they're there to ultimately they're happy with what they're doing. So therefore, the players don't have to deal with bullshit, right? I mean, going off what you said about Bittersweet, I think that's true. If you don't, like, going back to what I said earlier, if you don't set the example, your players don't, will be like, oh, fuck it, it doesn't matter. Let's just.
I hate calling orgs out, but
no, yeah, but it's true, and for whatever reason, maybe that's their initial intent to do that, right? Maybe they want to be that org, but ultimately, I think that's where a lot of the faultiness comes about, where if you don't set the perfect example, not that you need to be robotic and not have any personality, but ultimately, if there's no level of intensity and seriousness within the company and the organization and the structure, it'll show within your players and your teams and overall what you produce and put out to the world. And yeah, no, I agree. I think orgs kind of fall on their face because they're so hooked on having these teams that they're not terrible, but they're not amazing, right? And they don't focus on what happens when we don't have those teams, and on the back end, how do we make sure that when we don't have these teams, we can continue moving and have something to produce and create for the people that follow us on all our social medias.
Yeah, I just looked up their Twitter, and their bio says the #1 esports meme organization in the world. So that's right there is a red flag, but we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, going forward as when it comes to a player, right? Say I'm a player looking to be a part of a team, right? Why do you think structure as a player is very important from the back end when it comes to the organization?
It's simple. If the people above you have no clue what's going on, then you're going to be lost. There's no security whatsoever. If you don't have, teams will start falling apart because they have no confidence in where they're at, because they don't know if they're secure. They don't know if the people above them even know if they are secure themselves. So I think it's important to show a level of kind of, okay, well, we're here and you're here. We're going to take care of you while you're here. If you choose to leave, or if we decide to drop you, it's based off a professional decision.
Right.
While you're here, though, we're going to make sure that we do everything in our power to make sure that you're comfortable.
Right. And I agree. I think from a player's perspective, sometimes players, unfortunately, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts, and it's been talked about all over, news sources in esports, where players sometimes don't understand certain things about organizations. Like, they generally just play
too much, even.
Yeah. So my thing is,
they don't expect enough.
Right. So my thing as a player, my advice would be, as a player, you want to look for an organization that understands and what they want to do moving forward, and that you can look at and be like, all right, these guys have ultimately a plan or a structure that they can help me guide myself with and be able to move forward with my career. That's what amateur organizations lack. Even pro, lower tier organizations lack. That's why a lot of players leave. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Call of Duty is kind of a very unique esport in that sense that people will have a bad tournament and just leave or change rosters. But I do think you look at Optic, you look at FaZe, the structure's there. That's why it's comfortable for players to be there. Not just that alone, but the level of fame you obtain from being on those teams.
I just want to we'll take two examples of kind of player org relationships. The first in Call of Duty, and the second will be League of Legends. The first, if you look at Optic and Scump, who has been with Optic since 2012. So he's 22 years old. So that means he was 16. No, that's not right. Yeah, he was about 16, 17 when he joined.
Yeah, I believe so.
And he's been there ever since. He was just a kid, and Hector's been taking care of him all this time, and now it's to the point where I don't think they've announced, but I'm pretty sure he's at one point he will own part of it, because the org is taking care of him. That happened with Nadeshot.
Yeah. I mean, even Hex. I don't mean to cut you off, Ben, but even Hex made a vlog about it. How everybody that's helped build Optic, he even said this. He's like, at one point they'll get their part. Yeah. And that's humbling, right? That's like, holy shit, And I think that's what people lack when it comes to structure. The whole idea that you help somebody build something, give back to them, right? Understand that, build that personal relationship with them, because ultimately they're helping you as well. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing is everybody knows everyone that watches competitive Call of Duty knows that Optic will never get rid of Scump. And when there's a time where he feels that he is holding the team back, he's probably the one. Him and Formal are the ones that probably are going to be the longest tenured. But when that day comes, if it comes in the next 10 years or whatever he decides to keep playing, he will step back, but he will still be in that org until he decides to stop doing YouTube or streaming or whatever. And I think the same is, in League of Legends with Sneaky for Cloud9, kind of the staple, one of the first players. It was on the first roster, still there, 2012, somewhere around there, 2013.
Yeah.
And when he decides to retire, I think he's got a 3-year contract. I don't see him retiring anytime soon, but he will be a C9 streamer until he decides to stop streaming. So I think when players that do recognize that, and the org does recognize the loyalty of the player, they start to notice it, and they start giving back to you as a player. So I think it's very important to kind of look to see where you really are and who the people are that are running it, and if they care about you or not.
No, exactly. I think Immortals even does that too, where after a certain amount of years, they they let you invest into the company, and I think that's great. Like because ultimately, unfortunately, the esports career of a player is short lived. Unfortunately, it's just like even shorter than traditional sports. Um, and you'll look at, for example, Afro from CLG as well. He's one of the OGs, right? I don't ever
Double
really,
lift.
yeah, double it. I don't ever see these people leaving these organizations because it's almost like the organization and the player have been able to build that relationship to where you helped us grow, so it's only right that we help you, moving forward with your career. And I think at least for Third Sense, that's the ultimate goal, right? However, that's easier said than done, but I think having that in mind, for an org is very, very important because that structure alone will help you attract a lot of better players into your team.
I think for players like, for example, Dardoch, someone that's been on like different organizations for the last few seasons, like I would
Right.
be scared, if I was one of those players that constantly moves around because for people like Sneaky and Bjergsen and Scump and Aframu and Double Lift, people that will have homes in esports until they decide that they want to leave the industry, they're not worrying, they're not sweating anything because they know,
Right.
if it comes a time where I don't feel I'm good enough to play or I don't want to play competitively anymore, I'm just going to stream and make millions of dollars. And that's what Sneaky's going to do, and that's what Aframu probably will do, and Bjergsen too. So, but those people have some sort of security. But
Right.
when you're someone that isn't, I think
Hops
that's when it gets a
around.
little scary. Yeah,
I mean, you look at Bunny Fufu. He
yep.
makes a living off just streaming on with
C9, yep.
C9. And
Or
that's
Shroud
amazing.
now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then nothing in it too. Oh no, Shroud, right?
No, nothing's a TSM. Yeah,
TSM, right? Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. But there's only a
over
handful.
Gosu,
Yeah, there's only a handful of organs that do that though.
Iris.
You know.
Look at
And
Dyrus, good perfect
yeah,
example.
yeah.
So I
And
think that's what's really important in esports too.
yeah,
Um,
and I think my question is, why is there only a handful of organizations that have that structure for a player? That's
well, it's such a
concerning.
problem. Yeah. And it's not even necessarily really the best players too. Because
Right.
Dyrus really hasn't
Been
been
a
the best.
tier one, yeah.
Sneaky really never really been the best. I mean, Aframu's always been the best, but Scump's been the best. But I think it just comes down to how the player treats the org, and if they cause problems or if they don't cause problems. If they're bringing in positive marketing or
Like
not.
vibes, overall.
YouTube, all that stuff. Yeah.
No, yeah, and that's what I tell people all the time. Like, I think, especially for the amateur, you see all these handful of professional organizations, Immortals, C9, TSM, for League Legends,
And
and
yes,
NVS for Call of Duty in general with all their esports. Optic, they're doing the right thing. They're doing it almost like traditional sports, where if say I play for the Cubs, right? Um, once I retire, if I really want to, I can get a job at the Cubs.
well, that's what Kobe Bryant's going to be doing with the Lakers
Right.
pretty soon.
I mean, Magic
Kobe's going to
Johnson
be
does it.
working. Yeah, Kobe will be working next year in the front office, making trades and stuff. So I think, but again, that just comes down to how much he gave to the organization. They want to give back to him.
Exactly, right. And I think that's what I tell people with amateur organizations. I think you need it's almost like they set the example, and it's only right if you really want to grow and have that from the get go. The whole idea that you're not just an org that's there when shit is beautiful and unicorns and rainbows, but you're there when their career is over, and you're there whenever they don't play or whatever the case may be, right? They plan to just be part of the team
Or
or
bad years.
organization, right? And I think especially in the amateur scene that lacks, there's no amateur scene is like, you don't play, you're fucking off, and that's it. There's no other opportunities for you in that organization. And it's sad, because I what hurts me the most that I've realized too is that these amateur COD players, some of them have good intentions, right? However, Call of Duty is one of those games where it's really on the day-to-day basis if you're going to be good or not, right? And I see a lot of teams, yeah, a year. You see a lot of players kind of get fucked over by organizations and just kind of like, you guys lost, see you later. They're not willing to build that relationship, and I think that's the issue, and that's why organizations like Optic and VS, you know,
SolarMid, Cloud9.
yeah, all those companies, that's where they're very successful, because why wouldn't you want to be a part of something where you feel like you're wanted, right? Right? Where the structure is there not only for the organization to benefit, but for the player to have a future down the line. And that's kind of the thing that just lacks, and it gets under my skin, but like I said, it's complicated, it's not easy. That's why there's only a handful of orgs that do that.
It's kind of like the equivalent to, providing companies provide you with like a 401k even.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm sure they do that anyway with these companies, but kind of the analogy is, they tell Dyrus, like, you can stream here as like, even Dyrus is on Delta Fox playing in the Challenger Series with Echo Fox, but he's still TSM Dyrus. Like, just certain things like that is really, really good to see that it's starting. I hope it just starts to become more of the culture.
Right, and I think that's like kind of like where I'm headed, right? Where with Third Sense, and I tell everybody, ultimately at the end of the day, the people that help build this and the people that have stuck with us from the beginning, right? At one point they'll get their part, ultimately, because it's only right, to give back to the people that were there when, I tell people, like, people that are there when, it was just an idea or just a dream will be the people that be able to celebrate it when it's a reality. And I think that's the way pro organizations look at it, how Optic looks at it. People were there from the beginning and they believed in it, and now they're so successful, and it's almost like, holy shit, everybody wants to be part of that. But yeah, definitely. Regarding, moving forward with structure, what would you say, if there was something you would change about, let's say kind of like a norm regarding structure in esports, what would you change and why?
The startup, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of, it sucks to say because we were all there, but it's kind of like, I guess a good way to say it is, say, a little kid comes up to you, and I heard this once. It was in a stand-up comedy routine. He's 7 years old. He's 200 pounds, and he's 4'5", and he comes up to you and says, "I want to be a pro soccer player." And you're just like, "Yeah, it's cute." No. I think that people kind of just need some false reality, in a sense that, if you're going to start an organization and you're going to use that account to start cussing people out, and, you're in the first day and, you're picking up a COD youth team and sending them to a local and paying for everything, and, it's just you're setting yourself up for failure. So I think that there needs to be some sort of way to kind of convince people that if you're not going to do it right, just don't do it at all.
I mean, yeah, going off of that, I think
you can't do it. You can't do it, and
I think the issue with me when regards to that is, some people you will advise them, however, they don't think you're right. Like they think
they're right.
Yeah, right. And I think that's the issue in esports, at least when you're starting something up. You need to kind of like open yourself to reality and be like, holy shit, I don't know everything, right? These people either can be just saying something just to fuck with me, or say something to actually benefit me. So I think at the end of the day, you're always a student, right? About when it comes to anything, right? You always have to learn, you always have to adapt. And I think, that's kind of where I look at it. You always have to make sure that when you start something, you don't expect, and you're not expecting to know it all from the beginning. However, always
open to learning.
Right. Have that open mind and understand that if you seek the right people, they'll help you and they'll guide you. But I think, like you said, if you're not going to do it the right way, obviously the right way varies for certain people and certain things work for others. But I think fundamental things like the structure and having that, understanding of who does what, when do they do it, and how it's done is very important. And those are kind of like norms that should be instilled within every organization. Do I think we're there? Probably not. Just a handful of organizations that do that. Hopefully down the line, like you said, hopefully become more of a trend to where players first, the whole idea that building relationships long term, at the end of your career, if you really wanted to, you can come back and be part of something, that will last longer than just a handful of years. So yeah, I think structure is a very key point. And I think, even then, I don't
Covered it.
think.
We hit it on the head. I think
Yeah,
both of them.
yeah, I think there's still this is the way we look at it, and there's multiple other ways, but I think the people that we've spoken to, right, like people that have been in esports for much longer than we have and have worked with these companies, kind of they're like, holy shit, yeah, you guys are on the right path, you guys have the right mindset, and I think it's kind of humbling at the same time that we're in a sense still in the building stages of Third Sense, and then we're able to have that proactive mentality of always doing what's best for everybody in general, not just us or our players.
Yeah, listen, guys, we don't claim to know everything, but I think we're right on this one as far as how
Yeah,
should
no,
be
yeah,
running an organization.
do your homework, essentially.
On
We do
another
our
note,
homework.
before we sign off, do we want to get some quick LCS predictions for the weekend?
Ooh.
Third place match of Dignitas versus CLG.
I saw both games last week. It was kind of embarrassing. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It was not what I expected. However, Immortals, wow, like they legit impressed me. I was very impressed with the
I
way
look really good.
with the way they came out hot as
Yeah.
fuck. But you said Dignitas versus who again?
CLG.
CLG.
Third place match.
Third place match.
Winner goes to Worlds.
Damn. I'm gonna say Dignitas just because I haven't seen them. Just because I haven't seen them at Worlds in forever.
Since Michael Santana days.
Yeah. So what do you think? You're obviously
CLG,
biased.
CLG. Yeah.
And
I'm biased TSM
is it
too.
best of 5?
Yeah.
Right. Ooh. You want to get specific? I would say Dignitas takes it. Ooh. Man. I'm gonna say it's gonna be a close one.
3-2.
Yeah, 3-2.
I say 3-1 CLG.
All right. So, and the final TSM versus Immortals. Wow, I'm not gonna lie, man. I generally do think Immortals is gonna win this, dude.
Ooh. All right.
Okay.
We'll see.
Fair. Okay. To be fair, I'm a big supporter of Immortals CEO. And I like what he's doing, and he's somebody that I really look up to as.
I am too, but we're talking about League of Legends here.
Well, right, but going back to structure, right? Your players, emulate and follow and kind of have the mentality of the way things are supposed to be done based off the organization itself and the way it's ran. So, I'm gonna give the edge to Immortals. I think they're ready, man. I think Noah has spread his little fairy dust all over them to make them a championship team. So. I'm going to say this is going to be a close one too, though. I don't think TSM won't break. So I'm 3-2.
Ooh, yeah, I don't think anyone's stopping Bjergsen this weekend. No way. I say 3-1 TSM. I think Immortals takes game 1. TSM realizes they get Haunter onto tank and then they just win out. So we'll see. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to try to continue with this. I think our next topic is going to be somewhere along the lines of financial aspect of esports, or somewhere within.
Which that would be a big help for people.
Yeah. If say you do have money, you don't know what to do with it, where to put it, we can help. Or if you're looking, to get an investment, what the process might look like, or right. Even how to generate revenue, which is something I don't even think Eddie and I know enough about yet. However.
It's easier. Yeah, it's easier to kind of once you know it, it's easier to kind of try to do it. However, it doesn't always work, right? Certain things work for certain people. But yeah, definitely, I think this is a very helpful episode. As we move forward with the sense, I think it's going to be more based around how we can help people. And from time to time, we'll switch it up and do more of like cool shit, where it's not as serious as this. But yeah, I think I'm excited for next episode. And I know we were kind of AFK for a little bit. That's just personal stuff that we have going on. But for the most part, we're going to stay more consistent with this. If you guys do have any questions about us or regarding structure or anything regarding esports, comment down below.
DM us on Twitter or anything.
Twitter, follow us on Twitter. You can just tweet at the Third Sense Twitter, or Ben's Twitter and my Twitter are down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can just comment or tweet at us. and we'll get back to you guys. I think, as much as, we like to talk about this, we want to help you guys, be able to be there and be able to help yourselves at the same time. But yeah, with that said, thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any further comments, questions, just like I said, hit us up. And let's see you guys next episode.
Oh, and before we go, real quick, for all the League of Legends fans, when Worlds comes around, we will be having like a room in our Discord for like Worlds viewing party and stuff. So don't forget to drop by our Discord and say hello. We're always willing to talk to you guys. Like Eddie was saying, if you want to talk to us in person, we can see if we can. We'll find time for you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next Friday.
All right, guys. Peace out.
Bye, guys.